Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and today we are ranking the entire Tom Baker era from worst to best. That's right, all of the Fourth Doctor stories, season 12 through season 18, in my personal opinion of how I think they are, worst to best, least favorite to favorite, kind of a combination of the two. We have 42 stories to get through here that basically make up Tom Baker's run, or the Fourth Doctor's run, whichever you prefer. I will, of course, this is just TV stories. I am counting Shada. Now that Shada's been completed with the animation, I do consider it canon. I do consider it the season finale for season 17, so Shada will be on the list. So we will be going through and looking at, it's a combination of objective opinion and subjective opinion, so I am ranking the list from like least favorite to favorite, but there's also some of how I objectively feel about them and how good and how bad they are. It's kind of a combination of both of these. Now there are some of them on here that are probably higher than they objectively deserve to be. One in particular, which I'll mention when I get to it, that's objectively not good at all, but I have a fondness and a soft spot for it, so it's higher than it has any right to be. Some of you may know what it is. We'll get to it. But with that started, here we are, counting down every Fourth Doctor story, now that I've seen them all, because I did see Invisible Enemy recently. That was the last one I hadn't seen yet. We're counting them all down from worst to best. And starting at the very bottom of the list, in the 42nd place, the one Tom Baker story that I just find unwatchable and absolutely terrible is The Power of Prowl. Now, this is not a surprise to anyone who watches my channel regularly. Most of you know I am not a huge fan of this story. I know it's Robert Holmes, but even Robert Holmes thought this was a bad idea and that the show didn't have the budget to pull it off. It didn't. It looks bad, the location work looks bad, Kroll looks bad, some of the model work's not so bad. The guys in the green makeup that did not come off very well when they tried to clean it off look terrible, the guest acting is not impressive. Even Tom Baker just looks like he doesn't want to be there. This is the only story where I feel like even Tom Baker doesn't elevate the material in it. It's just uninteresting. It's executed badly. The story is okay. It's not great. Again, it's not Holmes's best, but it's fine on paper. But the execution of the story is just not done well. It's directed by the same guy who directed Underworld. Take that as you will. And I find Power of Prowl to be completely unwatchable. It is the one Tom Baker story that I'm perfectly fine, never watching again. Just a boring slog to get through for the most part. The novelization of it is better. Again, the story itself is fine. I have read the Target novelization of it, and while still nothing to write home about, it is an improvement over the TV episode. Moving up to number 41 on the list is The Leisure Hive. Now, The Leisure Hive is perfectly watchable. You'll find out a lot of the stories, even toward the bottom of the list, tend to be stories I like to one degree or another. Now, I don't really like The Leisure Hive. I will say that. I'm not fond of it. It's perfectly watchable. I can sit through it. Sometimes if I'm doing a watch through of season 18, I will get through Leisure Hive before I move on to Meglos. But I just don't really get into it. That opening shot that's like a minute and a half long makes me just want to fall asleep. The story doesn't really engage me. I don't really like the makeup on the people with the little bells on their heads. The one young one that's kind of the antagonist of the story, the actor playing him, is not that great. Tom is fine in it. Lala is fine in it. The aged makeup on Tom is really impressive. When he's older with the beard, that's actually really good. Better than a lot of age makeup I see on productions now. Better than old Clara in Last Christmas. Better than the makeup used in Prometheus. So I will give them props for that. The makeup there is pretty good. But for the most part, again, I just find it a bit uninteresting, a bit boring. Doesn't really do much for me. At number 40 on the list is The Invisible Enemy, which I have just recently watched for the first time. Again, kind of boring. I think it's more famous for being K9's first story than anything else. I do like Tom in it. Leela in it's kind of hit or miss. Excuse me. Leela in it's kind of hit or miss. I like the guy who plays the inventor of K9, who I know is also in Planet of Evil. I like him. He's really good in the story. I was so happy he survived. I thought he was going to die. I was so happy when he survived. And I like seeing the one guy who's one of the infected people who's also in Remembrance of the Daleks, who's also Professor Scarman's brother in Pyramids of Mars. I like when he shows up in Doctor Who, although this is kind of the least interesting role I've seen him in. He kind of gets relegated to baddie very quickly. Some of the CSO work when they're inside the Doctor's body looks really good. Some of it looks really terrible, so it just depends on the scene. And again, the story's just uninteresting. Like, I don't know, a lot of the worst Doctor Who stories are just the ones I find boring. Like, if I get bored and I find it dull and uninteresting, it tends to be lower on the list for me. And I watched this with the updated effects, but it still wasn't enough to really save it. The story's fine. Again, it's perfectly watchable, but it's not one I would want to go back and re-watch a lot. Again, I think it's more memorable just for being K9's first story than for actually being any good. Also, the little maggot thing, I can't decide if that's a good costume design or not. In some ways I want to say yes, in some ways I want to say no. But uninteresting. That's the best way for me to sum it up. It's just uninteresting. In 39th place is Full Circle. Full Circle is a weird one because I tend to look at it more favorably when I'm coming off a fresh rewatch of it. And a lot of times when I've rewatched it, I've come away from it with different opinions. You ever had a story like that? I know the last couple times I've watched it right after I rewatched it, I tend to have a more favorable opinion of it while it's still fresh in my mind. So if I just rewatched it, it'd probably be a little higher. I like some of the stuff going on in Full Circle, like the Doctor figuring out that they're fixing the ship while also dismantling the ship because they don't know what to do. That whole conversation he has with kind of the head people is a cool conversation. It introduces Adric, which I guess that's a double-edged sword, but personally I think Adric is fine with Tom. I find Adric more bothersome with the 5th Doctor. I actually don't mind Adric with the 4th Doctor for the most part. He's all right in Full Circle. I don't really like Romana being controlled by the bugs. The whole companion being controlled thing is kind of trope at this point for classic Who, so I find that a little irksome. I still usually have trouble following the life cycle of the creatures on this planet, keeping up with it. I don't know. Again, borders into uninteresting. Some of the location work looks really nice. When I'm off a rewatch of it, I tend to like it more, but when it's been a while since I've seen it, it's just kind of one of those, I'm like, oh yeah, Full Circle. So. Coming in at number 38 is The Invasion of Time. And a lot of this is down to two things that really hold the story back. I've talked about this before. One is the way Leela's written out with the quick marriage off to this guard captain she's known for like 10 minutes. That's weird. That's definitely out of character for Leela. Plus, I don't like the trope of, classic Doctor Who just marrying female companions off. It's a little repetitive. That happens a little much. Or leaving for a love interest, etc., etc. But the bigger problem is definitely the very obvious lack of budget. Look, it's classic Doctor Who. It's done on a budget. We get that. That's just one of those things about classic Doctor Who. You just kind of have to accept and move on, willing suspension of disbelief and all that stuff. However, every now and then you run into Doctor Who, or, it could be the original Star Trek, older shows like that where it's so bad, even your willing suspension of disbelief is like, I can't do it. The Invasion of Time is definitely that. The Vardens or whatever they're called look terrible. With that little tinsel look on the original version, they look garbage. And of course, the infamous TARDIS interior scenes, when it's filmed at a hospital, I believe. That, more than anything, just breaks me, because I never believe they're inside the TARDIS running around. It completely pulls me out of the story. Willing suspension of disbelief shattered. I'm just looking at it going, okay, they're on location at some place and the budget was gone. And so it really makes me struggle. Now, I haven't actually watched it with the updated effects. I am looking forward to seeing that. That may help it a little bit. But I don't think they can update the effects of that TARDIS interior without a way bigger budget. It's cool having the Suntarans back. The Suntarans are fine in it. I mean, the cliffhanger when they first show up is a great cliffhanger. It just seems overly complicated with the Doctor pretending to be evil to lure the Vardens in and him kicking Leela. It seems needlessly complicated for no reason. The story is all right. It's not great, but it's all right. It's believable. I like the fact the Suntarans are treated as a real threat in it. But the budget and Leela's exit just kind of kill it for me. Moving up to number 37, and we're getting into ones I like. You know, Tom Baker is my favorite Doctor. Tom Baker's era tends to be my favorite era. Well, the Pertwee era and the Tom Baker era. The 70s, basically. 70s and season 18. They're my favorite. That's my favorite run of Doctor Who, basically. And so, even at this low, we're getting into stories I like. The next one on the list is Nightmare of Eden, Nightmare on Eden, Nightmare of Eden. Which I like. I enjoyed this story. I think it's an underrated story. I did watch it for the first time when the season 17 box set came out. I did watch it with the updated effects, so I've never actually watched it with the original effects. But watching it with the updated effects, I did enjoy it. I thought the sets looked really good. I thought the sets looked decently good. The guy who uses the weird German accent's a little off-putting. But other than that, I found myself liking the story. I think it's a nice little, message that drugs are bad. It's nice to see Doctor Who doing something like that. That's fine. I thought the creature design looked pretty neat. It's great to have K9 in the story. I've only watched it the one time, so it could move up or down the list. But I did find it underrated. I found it an enjoyable watch. And I wouldn't mind watching it again sometime. It's a good story. We're already at a point on the list where we're talking about stories I like. Number 36 on the list is Underworld, which I finally got to watch again for the first time in a long time. I've seen Underworld twice now. Underworld, again, is massively underrated. I think its big problem is that its best episodes are the bookend episodes, episodes 1 and 4. Episodes 2 and 3 are not as good. The CSO work in episode 3 is really bad. It's notorious for having bad CSO work in the caves because of the budget being where the budget was because of crazy high inflation, which is something I can relate with now. And so them having to use CSO for the caves. The CSO is more cleverly done in episode 2, but it's very bad in episode 3, like the director just gave up. Although it does get a little better in episode 4. The great thing about episodes 1 and 4 is, one, there is a lot of stuff going on there. There's some great addition to Time Lord lore in episode 1, which I really like, and finding out how everything going on with this race connects with the Time Lords. I really like that. But the model work is phenomenal. I've talked about this before when I reviewed Underworld. The model work, I think, in Underworld is some of the best in Classic Who. It looks really impressive in episodes 1 and 4, and I was really impressed with some of the dynamic nature of some of the shots. It's actually pretty good, and I feel like that doesn't get enough credit in the story. And the story itself is fine. And I think the actors in the story are fine. I think the guest actors are fine. I think Tom and Leela are good. I really enjoy Underworld. It's a story that needs more attention, in my opinion. Number 35 on the list, going to be a controversial one, is The Hand of Fear. So, the first Hinchcliffe story to make it on the air. Hand of Fear is, of course, from season 14, which is probably the most overrated season in Classic Who. It's either season 5 or season 14. Hand of Fear is a good 3-part story, but the problem is it's 4 parts. Parts 1, 2, and 3 are really good. It kind of falls apart in part 4, though it picks back up at the end. The departure of Sarah Jane, which I know Elizabeth and Tom wrote most of themselves, is really good. I do like Sarah Jane's exit at the end. The dialogue between them is really good, and you really get a sense of there's more not being said than there is being said, and it's really well done. And then her realizing he blew it and just whistling. That's a nice ending. I like that. The episode itself kind of falls apart. One, the set for the planet they're on, Eldrad's home planet, is not a good set. And the male Eldrad just doesn't work as good as female Eldrad. The actress playing female Eldrad, she's really good in the role, and her design is really impressive. The guy playing male Eldrad, Steven, I like Steven, but I am so used to that booming voice of his being Omega. I identify that with Omega, because I loved Omega in 3 Doctors. He's so good at that I immediately connect that voice with Omega. So when I hear it anywhere else, it kind of pulls me out of the episodes. I have the same problem with him playing the demon in the Daemons. And that's part of what hurts the Daemons. You guys know I have issues with the Daemons. And that's part of the reason, because when I hear that, I just hear Omega. So I have that problem here too when he's doing male Eldrad, and he's going so over the top with it like he tends to do. The kind of megalomania over the top, that all I hear is Omega, and it pulls me out of the story. Now, I do love at the end when he gets that message of the king. He's like, "Hail, King Elrad, ruler of nothing." It's a great line. Love that line. It gets points for that. But the ending, too, when the male Eldrad is chasing him and he trips over the scarf, and it's very clear he doesn't, and falls down, is terribly executed. I mean, the idea of a rock creature tripping over the scarf doesn't really work for me anyway, but it's obvious the fact that it's not acted well. That scene's just not shot well when he just kind of steps over it. Oh, it looks bad. It looks bad. The first 3 episodes are really good. I like the location work. I like the stuff in the factory. I like everything going on in the first 3 episodes, except, and this is one of the things that hurts it, it's once again, and in her final story, a companion getting hypnotized and under somebody else's control. And this is the second story in a row when that happens to Sarah Jane, because it also happened in Mask of Mandragara. So I have to deduct points for that, because one, it's tropey and it irks me, and 2, it happens in Sarah Jane, my favorite companion's final story, and it's also happened in her penultimate story. So that really irks me. Other than that, I enjoy the first 3 episodes. So that's the reason why it's this low on the list. It just kind of falls apart in episode 4. It does, let's be honest. At number 34 on the list, one of the 2 stories that I think is the most overrated story in classic Doctor Who. There are 2 of them that I find just so massively overrated, and they both come in the same season, 14. I did a video talking about this not long ago. And at number 34 is The Deadly Assassin. Look, The Deadly Assassin is not a bad story. On its own, in a bubble, just judging it by itself, it's fine. I like the idea of a classic Who story without a companion, just the Doctor on his own. This is the only classic Doctor Who story where he doesn't have a companion and he's on his own. I like the fact it's set on Gallifrey. I was about to say I like the fact that it expands on Time Lord lore, but I don't. And it's a nice little murder mystery. I enjoy aspects of that. Here's where it falls apart. I don't like how it makes the Time Lords humans, basically. They have the same political motives as humans do. They're just as corrupt as humans can be. For me, the Time Lords, even though they look humans, they're not human. And I feel like that was forgotten here. They're written like they're humans. They're just humans on another planet. They're sitting there making jokes about their hips acting up. I just don't get it. I don't really care what they did for the Master here. I would rather them have just regenerated him into someone else. I know Roger passed away, but they could have simply had him regenerate someone else instead of coming up with the crispy Master. Now, it's executed well, and Peter Pratt plays the role beautifully. He's got this magnificent voice that, even though it's muffled, is perfect for the role. And the mask they chose is a pretty cool mask. I do think the law the Doctor uses to basically become president-elect is weird. It's odd that the Time Lords would have a law like that on the books, but again, that kind of reflects how the Time Lords are really just humans, because we have our own laws on the books in real life that are, why is that on there? The set design isn't great, but it's classic Doctor Who budget. The Panopticon really doesn't look that impressive, but again, classic Doctor Who budget. And then let's get into the seldom worn ceremonial robes. And by seldom worn, they mean you will see them every other time the Time Lords ever show up, ever! Because that's what seldom worn means. Look it up in the dictionary. Always worn in every episode of Doctor Who post The Deadly Assassin. I'm pretty sure that's the definition for seldom worn. Yeah, I hate those outfits. I hate those ceremonial robes. They just look ridiculous. And I wouldn't mind them if they were truly the seldom worn robes for like a special occasion, like Deadly Assassin. That makes sense. But the fact that we always see them wearing them after that, and this is where Deadly Assassin is weakest, is what it does to the lore and how it affects Doctor Who as a whole. You have the regeneration limit, which doesn't bother me as much because I like the idea of them only have limited regenerations. Don't like, again, how it makes the Time Lords more human. We will never see the Time Lords be the amazing godlike creatures they were in the War Games ever again, unfortunately. Although Timothy Dalton is quite amazing when he's playing Rassilon. And my mind just kind of went blank. But I've talked about Deadly Assassin before and my issues with it, so I'm sure most of you who watch my channel know my problems with it. And that's the reason why it was ranked so low. It's not that I don't enjoy the story itself. It's more how it affects Doctor Who as a whole and the consequences of things that happen because of this story. Also, some of the location work when they're inside the Matrix doesn't impress me. I mean, it's neat. It's neat on paper, but some of it just honestly doesn't impress me. Moving up to number 33 on the list, we have Creature from the Pit. And again, it's a story I enjoy. Again, this era is my favorite era of Doctor Who. It's my favorite Doctor, has some of my favorite companions. And so, even ones this low on the list tend to be stories I like, and Creature from the Pit does fall in that area. Now, I've only watched it once, so I don't know on a rewatch how my opinion will change of it. I like the actress playing the lady, Andrastar, or whatever her name is, the actress playing her. There's just something about her. She is so good in this role, because the character she's playing is kind of this grown, spoiled brat, adult child type character that likes getting her way and then pouts when she doesn't, like a child. You kind of get this impression that her parents were like the rich parents that spoiled her, gave her too much when she was little. She strikes you as one of those people that as a child was never told no, and as an adult has never been told no. And the actress playing her pulls that off really well. There are a couple of times where you can almost see her wanting to stomp her foot. So I really was impressed with that. Tom Baker is really, really good in this story. One of my favorite Tom Baker scenes of all time is in this story. I've talked about it so many times on the channel since I watched it, and that is that first 6 or 7 minutes of episode 4 when the Doctor is just going off on her. There's nothing here but, weeds, forest, and weeds! And she's like, have a care, Doctor. And he's like, you have a care. Care about your people for a change. But the first person it met when it landed here was her. And did she try to make a deal to help, to benefit her people? No. That whole scene is just Tom Baker on fire. It is one of the scenes I would cite if I was doing like a debate with someone at who the best Doctor was. And my argument, of course, would be Tom Baker. Tom Baker is my favorite Doctor, and I believe objectively the best Doctor. Especially for the qualities I look for in a Doctor. This scene would be one of the scenes I would point to. He's just so good in it. And I've raved about it before. I love that scene. And the fact that he manages to be in control of the room, even though everyone else in the room basically is on her side. He manages to do what the doctor is supposed to do, and he's in control of the situation. He controls the room. And by the end of it, he swayed all of her people to see his side of things, and they turn on her. I love that. Now, I can't rank a story just based solely on that scene, because that's not fair. I do find the other parts of Part 4, the rest of Part 4, to kind of drag on. It's good. It resolves everything it needs to, with the creature and then wrapping up and diverting the missile or whatever it is. That's fine, and the effects of it look pretty decent for Classic Who, I got to admit. They're not the best in the world, but they look pretty decent. But I remember when the lady, Andrus or whatever, when she died that early in episode 4, I was kind of like, what, that's it? That's already? And the rest of it's fine. I enjoy Romana in this story, especially like in episode 1, she gets a lot to do with the kind of guys who hoard stuff. She gets a lot to do in that scene with them. K9 gets a little bit to do in this, which I like. The set design looks really good. I like the caves. I like when they're up in the forest world. The creature design is unfortunate. We all know what I mean. Irito or whatever his name is. The creature design is unfortunate, but it's not as bad as its reputation most of the time. There are those few scenes where it looks bad. Those are the ones people really talk about. Like one of the first times you see it, you just got the arm. Okay, that's bad. And then the scene when the doctor's trying to communicate with it, that's bad. But a lot of times when it's just the blob, it's fine. It's not anything impressive, and it is kind of hokey. But when you add the little green glow on it, it's fine. I like Creature from the Pit. It is one that needs a second viewing to see how it's going to stick in my mind. Especially since my memory's not the best in the world, so especially if I've only seen a story once or twice, I tend to just remember basically the cliff notes of it. And it's not fair to praise it simply because of that one scene that I truly love, even though there are other smaller scenes in it I like. And I like the idea of the creature itself, and how I can make the little eggshell walls. That's pretty cool. But yeah, for now, this is where it sits. It's one I like. It does deserve a rewatch to see how it will look on a reappraisal. Number 32, we have the Androids of Tara. Androids of Tara is an interesting one because I tend to have a different opinion of it every time I view it. I remember the first time I watched it, I really liked it. Second time I watched it, I didn't really care for it. And I think I've watched it 3 now. I think the third time I watched it, I was just kind of eh. I think part of my problems with it boils down to Romana really does get reduced to that damsel in distress role that just needs rescuing. And then she gets kidnapped again and then needs rescuing. I feel like she feels very two-dimensional in this. If I ever found out that this story was the reason Mary Tam decided not to do another season, I would perfectly understand. I feel like with her being a female Time Lord, despite being a young one, I feel like she doesn't get enough to do here as a character. Now, Mary Tam is on fire here. Mary Tam is playing 4 characters because she's playing Leela, she's playing the princess character, she's playing the robot pretending to be Leela, then she's playing the robot pretending to be the princess. Mary Tam is doing a great job. But Leela, I'm saying Leela when I mean Romana. Romana, however, needed more to do here. I just don't like that role she got relegated to. Now, Tom Baker is great. I really like Tom Baker in this story. You might not standing on my chest, my hat's on fire. One of my favorite Tom Baker lines. He's great. The guy playing the villain, who I know is also the pilot in the Macroterra, he's great. I like him in both roles. He's really good. I like the camera work in this one, the location filming. I like the set design. And the story is pretty, it's okay. That's part of what pulls it down. Because again, I like a lot of the execution of the story, the location work, the set design, Tom Baker, the guest cast. I love a lot of that. It's, again, the way Romana's treated and basically the fact the story itself just kind of, to me, that has it this low on the list. It does need another rewatch, though. Number 31 on the list, Tom Baker's final story, Logopolis. This is really the highest I could put Logopolis, and I feel like if it wasn't a regeneration story, it probably wouldn't even be this high. Logopolis isn't bad. Logopolis is fine. it's edging into good, but I feel like for the fourth Doctor, he deserved a better final story. Now, I do love the fact he goes out basically saving the universe, or most of the universe. That's pretty cool, even though he kind of inadvertently caused the problem in the first place. Tom Baker is fine in it. It even, season 18 as a whole kind of has a funeralistic feel to it, a things coming to an end feel to it, but that's really apparent here in Logopolis. It has this very somber end of things tone to it, very funeralistic. I like it. It's a great introduction for Tegan, and it's nice to see Tegan get to interact with 4 a little bit here. I enjoyed that. Adric's fine in it. Nyssa coming back is kind of weird. I get she wasn't originally supposed to be a permanent companion. And there are a lot of times in Nyssa's run where I don't think she's utilized nearly as well as she should. I just recently watched Snake Dance for the first time. That was one of my main criticisms of Snake Dance. I feel like Nyssa has nothing to do, basically. That's kind of true here. She doesn't really have a lot to do. She's just kind of there. Anthony Ainley is great in the Masters in this. I enjoy him, especially early on. You don't really see him, just kind of hear that creepy laugh of his. It's nice to get to see him also work with the fourth Doctor and Tom Baker a little bit, since we tend to know him more with 5, 6, and 7, especially with 5. So it's nice to see him interacting with 4 in this story. Some of the location work looks really good, even better with the updated effects. It makes those the final couple scenes look just a little more, give them a little more of a punch, to where it has a better background and it's an actual thing and not just a model that I really enjoy. And I enjoy the regeneration itself. I like the callback to previous companions and enemies. I like the regeneration effect itself. I think it's done really well. I love the fact that it's not really a long speech like in Modern Who. I always joke about, the 10th Doctor, when knowing he's about to regenerate, goes on a rant. The 11th Doctor does a really long but good speech. The 12th Doctor does a way too long speech. I'll give 13 credit. At least her speech wasn't overly long. I love the fact that the 4th Doctor, when he realizes he's about to regenerate, first thing he does is smile. He just does. We get that one last Tom Baker grin, because I love that Tom Baker grin. Who grins like Tom Baker? Well, Christopher Eccleston, but Tom Baker's grin is amazing. And I love the fact when he looks over, we get that one little Tom Baker smile before he says, the famous "it's the end" line, which is a great line. I love the fact that his doctor faces that, but he's perfectly fine. He doesn't even seem bothered by it. He's like, well, it's the end, but the moment's been prepared for. That's it. That's great. I love that. I always respect the fact that the 4th Doctor didn't mind. Because the classic Doctor Who realized it's not the Doctor dying and becoming someone else. It's the Doctor basically getting a new body. Yes, his personality changes a little too, but classic Doctor Who was a lot more clear about how it's just his body changing for the most part. A new body's like a new house, just takes a little getting used to. It's not like Modern Who, where everything I am dies, some new man goes sauntering away. Which, while being a great speech, just doesn't, it's not Doctor Who. So I love that ending. And I really like that camera pan it does when it pans down to the 4th Doctor on the ground. It's a very unusual style of camera shot for classic Who. And I really enjoy the regeneration music as well. His regeneration theme is really good. The Watcher is an interesting character as well. I like the mystery surrounding him. The idea of Logopolis as a whole, though, is weird. That the universe is held together by mathematics. And that somehow they managed to... that's weird. The whole idea of that happening, that messing things up, and them fixing that is just weird. Again, it's a good story, but not a good story. And I can't justifiably put it any higher on the list. Number 30, one of the ones that's going to get me in trouble. Remember earlier when I talked about how season 14 had the two most overrated Doctor Who stories in classic Doctor Who. One of them was Deadly Assassin. The other one is The Robots of Death. I like Robots of Death. Again, we're into stories I like. However, my fondness for Robots of Death and I've talked about this before when I talked about the most overrated story in Doctor Who video, is I like the design choices in it. I love the robot design in it. That is a design that is aged really well and still looks good in 2023, honestly, in my opinion. You know, unlike a lot of the other robot designs in Classic Who, where you're like, well, it was made in the 70s or 60s or 80s, you know? The robot design for the robots and Robots of Death is really good. It's really stood the test of time. Same thing with the set design, whereas, you know, futuristic spaceship designs don't always age well. The fact they went for that kind of luxury cruiser Renaissance looks really well. I like the outfit designs. Like, these don't feel like industrial workers on a drilling machine, like, say, the Nostromo would look like. You know, you would expect it to look more like the Nostromo, where they're wearing the uniforms and everything has this very industrial look, like an Alien. Here, it's different. You know, it's almost like they're passengers on a luxury cruise, not people working a job, because they're dressed in these kind of, I guess what they consider comfortable clothes, each to their own style, not like a uniform, more like a personal clothing choice. And then the actual interior of the ship looks like it's made for you to just kind of sit and relax. The bridge has a bit of an industrial look to it, a bit, but not bad. But the rest of the ship looks like a place where you can just chill out and hang out and relax and eat grapes. And that's cool. I love those design choices. Those are what I am fond of in the story. The actual plot itself is okay. I mean, it's a murder mystery. It's fine. I mean, obviously the robots are running around doing it. The mystery is trying to figure out who the killer is, unless, of course, you're paying attention and catch the spoilers ahead of time. Louise Jameson is really good as Leela in this one. I really like her as Leela here. Tom Baker is great, of course, as the Fourth Doctor here. And I enjoy most of the guest cast for the most part. They're fine. The guy who's kind of behind it looks weird in the makeup. That just looks weird in the makeup. I mean, he's obviously a nut bar. I mean, you can tell he's nuts. And so it kind of plays into him being nuts. But it's still a little out there. The guy who's like afraid of robots and how he ended up spazzing out doesn't seem to need to be there at all. I'm not even sure why that's there, but okay. And then the bit with the helium's clever. I do like the bit with the helium, the way he talks to her at the end. Oh, there's a mouse in there. Are you ready to go? Mouse. I enjoy that, but the story itself doesn't grip me as much. It's one of those on a first watch it's good, but on rewatches, I already know the answer, so it's not as impressive to me. Even though there's plenty of other shows, like I love Columbo, where you know the murderer the whole time, but I don't know, it doesn't have a strong rewatchability to me, other than I like the robot design, the set design, and I think all of the actors are doing a good job. I just feel it's overrated, and this is where it falls on my list personally. Number 29, we have The Stones of Blood. Season 16. Stones of Blood is an interesting one. I believe it's the 15th anniversary story, and also the 100th episode is in Stones of Blood. But it's a story that I am of two minds on, because it really is kind of two stories interconnecting into one story. The stuff going on Earth doesn't interest me as much. I'm way more interested in the hyperspace stuff. Like the stuff with the cultist and the stone blocks, the Ogre, don't really grip me. The Ogre running around is kind of silly to me, actually. And the guy who plays like the male cultist is hamming it up so bad. Like 80s Who guest star bad. He is just hamming it away. That kind of pulls me out of the story. Now, I do like the old lady, the one who's on the doctor's side. She's great. And then the one who's the villain, the younger female who's the villain. She's really good. She's really good at this. When she's playing the kind of innocent character at the beginning, she's great. And when you find out who she is, she's also great. She does a good job. The scene when one of the rocks shows up and attacks the campers is really good. I got to give that props right there. That scene's really cool. When you see the hand turning into the skeleton, phenomenally done. Excellent done. But for me, the real strong part of the story is hyperspace. One, I love the idea that hyperspace exists in the Doctor Who universe, and I wish they would explore that more often. I like the idea of a ship that has been stuck for like thousands of years in hyperspace right there waiting for somebody to find it. And the fact it's like right there above Stonehenge. We just don't know it's there because it's, you know, in hyperspace instead of normal space. I like that idea. I like the idea of the Doctor accidentally releasing the aliens and being put on trial for it. I like the design of the aliens, how they're just the little energy beams. I love when, not just Doctor Who, but sci-fi shows in general, have aliens that truly are alien. They're not just, you know, humans with makeup on like Klingons. And they're not just like modern Doctor Who does when they're, you know, Earth animals, but bigger like the Jadoon or the chicken creature from Vincent and the Doctor. Speaking of overrated Doctor Who stories, you know, when they do stuff like that. Oh, look, the alien's a giant dog. To me, that's lazy. That's just lazy when you do that, as much as I love the Jadoon. So I like when Doctor Who has something like this and they look totally alien. They're just these energy beings. And it's such a neat little effect, but it's so effective. I love listening to Tom Baker defend himself, basically. I love that he puts on the little wig. I love that. So it's all the stuff going on the hyperspace ship that I tend to find way more fascinating and interesting and that I enjoy personally. The Stone to Blood is a mixed bag for me, but overall I like it. Number 28 on the list is the Suntaren Experiment, the first appearance, I believe, of season 12 on the list. I like the Suntaren Experiment. It is a good story, especially just being a two-parter. As a four-parter, I don't know if it would have worked, but as a two-parter, it knows what it is, and it does what it needs to do in two parts and tells a good story. The location work looks really well, and it's kind of frustrating that I know this story has all location work, but instead of being shot on film, it was done on the outside video cameras, which is unfortunate because if it had all been shot on film, maybe the film would still exist and we could have it in glorious HD. But sadly, it was all shot on the outside video camera, standard definition. But I enjoy the story itself. The guy playing, was it Steyer? I get them all mixed up in this one. The guy playing the Suntaren in this one, who I believe is the same guy who played Lynx in Time Warrior. He's great. I know he wasn't in the best of health here, but he's good. I like his voice work. I like the fact Harry and Sarah all kind of get a little bit to do. Sarah doesn't get a lot to do. She gets a little to do. Harry gets a little to do. I think Tom is good. I think Tom is good in it. The fight between Tom and the Suntaren isn't the best because I know Tom had broke his collarbone, so a lot of that I believe is Terry Walsh doing stand-in. But with knowing that circumstance, it's fine and effective and it gets the job done. And I like the fact that Harry managed to reverse the thing that kills the Suntaren. That's pretty cool. I like it. It's short, it's sweet, it gets the job done. It's a fun adventure that doesn't overstay its welcome. And it's some good location work. And it does a good job of showing, you know, this TARDIS trio working together. I like that. Number 27, Image of the Findal. Now, I need to rewatch this one. It has been a long time since I've seen it to reevaluate it. But it's good, especially the story itself. I love the story here. I love the idea of the Findal creature. I love it being dormant in the skull, it invading someone and possessing them and then draining. And that whole idea is phenomenal. I mean, the story, A+. I love the story. The execution of the story is good for the most part. I love the location shooting. The nighttime shooting in particular looks really good. Leela is really good in this one. She has a lot to do. Tom is great in this one. I tend to like the guest cast in this one, I think, for the most part. It's been a while since I've watched it. My biggest problem is the final form of the Findal creature, basically the woman in the gold paint, which I know the actress enjoyed doing because I think she had been up for that role in Goldfinger and didn't get it, so she actually ended up getting to be painted gold after all. The painted gold just looks like a person who's painted in gold. And the fake eyes. I've complained before about one of my biggest issues in Classic Who is when they do the painted on eyes. I have the same problem with the Keeper of Traken when they do the painted on eyes. I never like that. It always looks terrible. So seeing her with the painted on eyes and the creature behind her doesn't really work either. It really pulls me out of the story. It is one of those Classic Who moments where even my willing suspension of disbelief is kind of going, it's a shame, because if it wasn't for that, this story would be much higher on the list. But that, especially since it is the threat of the story, it just doesn't quite work. Other than that, most of the other stuff on it I really like. I need to rewatch it. It'd probably be also higher on the list if I'd seen it more recently. Not a lot more to talk about, because again, I tend to remember more of the cliff notes for stories I've only seen once or twice and haven't seen in a while. Number 26, The Android Invasion, which I believe is the first appearance of season 13 on the list. Such a strong season. The Android Invasion has definitely gone up in my estimates since I rewatched it. So when I first started really doing the channel, I wasn't overly fond of it. I think that was the main, I think if me and him ever disagreed on anything, I think it was The Android Invasion. But I rewatched it. I think that was a Patreon poll that got voted on, and that was the one that got voted to rewatch, because I think most of my patrons that were there at the time knew I wasn't fond of that one. So that, of course, that's the one they voted for. But I'm glad they did, because on a rewatch, I still think it's the weakest story of season 13, but I think season 13 is fantastic. I don't think it has any bad stories. And it is a good one. There is the glaring hole and the big elephant in the room of the Brigadier not being there, which is frustrating, but Nicholas Courtney wasn't available. I find the creature design of the crawls, or whatever they're called, not to be overly impressive design. And I feel like they're not threatening. Even though they have a very deadly plan, they never come across as threatening. The guy playing the guy with the eye patch is okay. I mean, he plays a lot of roles in Doctor Who, but I don't think this is his best one. The bit with the eye patch is weird. Why would they lie to him about the eye patch and his eyes fine? That whole bit is weird. But the location work looks really good. I love the location work. Tom is putting in another phenomenal performance. Elizabeth's putting in another performance. It's great to see John Levine back as Benton and to see Ian Marter back as Harry. You know, one final story with both of them. I do wish we'd gotten to make sure Benton was okay. I mean, we know he was okay. He's mentioned later. But I hate the fact the last time we see real Benton, he's knocked unconscious, and we just see robot Benton. That's a little off-putting. But it is good to have Benton back, and it's good to have Harry back. I do like that. Again, really enjoy the location work. I like a lot of the dialogue with it. Some of the camera work is really impressive, like when Sarah first meets the robot doctor and how she realizes it's not the real doctor, that shot of the robot doctor, the way Tom does his expression, but also the way the camera angle is done, where he kind of has that sinister look. That's a really well executed shot. I was really fond of it. It's a good story. I just have, again, we're halfway through. Look, Ham, it made it halfway up the list. It's Android Invasion, it's halfway up the list, okay? What do you want from me? It deserves to be there too. I mean, we are halfway through the list, and Android Invasion is a good story. I still think it's the weakest of season 13, but you know, it's still a great story. Number 25 is the Mask of Mandragara, an underrated story, I think, from season 14. It's the biggest problem to me with Mask of Mandragara is just that the ending is a little too easy, a little too Deus Ex Machina. Things get resolved a little too easily. Now, part of this is just the Doctor is highly intelligent. He's the Doctor. But it still feels a little too, oh, that's it? Oh, that was easy, you know? I enjoy a lot of it. I think it's well cast. Once again, Sarah is good in this one. Tom is good in this one. I don't like Sarah getting basically hypnotized again. I've talked about that before on this list. I don't like when that happens. I do like we get an explanation for why they hear everybody in English, something that really got explained more in the modern series, but I do like that that's touched on here. The fact, they're speaking, Italian, I believe, and the fact Sarah can hear them just fine. I do like that that's touched upon when he explains, that's just a gift I share with you. So I like the fact that's brought up. The guy who's playing the Count is really good. He's such a good job of playing the sinister Count. I like him in that. The guy playing the kind of sorcerer character is fine. Like, he's not bad. He's not like great. He's edging into good. He's fine. The guy who's playing the young prince, soon to be king character, he's really good. And the guy playing his friend, Morgan or Marcus, I think, he's really good. So I tend to like most of the guest cast going on. And I just love some of the dialogue bits. You can't count. That's always one of my favorites. I love that. That's what I love about Fourth Doctor, when he does that little bit of wordplay. And again, the location work looks really good. I mean, I kept expecting Patrick McGowan to be right around the corner at any time, The location work looks good. Like I said, my biggest complaint about it is simply the ending. The ending being kind of Deus Ex Machina. Everything's wrapped up a little easier and neater than I thought it should be. Other than that, I think it's a really good story. A very underappreciated story. Number 24, The Sunmakers. Bob Holmes does not like his taxman. Understandable. I'm not fond of my taxman either. I like Bob Holmes. Most of you guys know that. I love Robert Holmes, my favorite Doctor Who writer. I think this is a really nice satirical take on the taxman. I think it's done really well. I enjoy the set design. I like the kind of uniform, nondescript outfits that, they're very bland outfits made to kind of blend into the background, which is probably how the corporation sees their workers anyway. Faceless, just kind of there, dull, doing the work. The actor playing kind of the second in command, the one who talks like this and does his arms, he's hamming it up a bit, but it works for the story perfectly fine. I like him. And then the guy playing the Weasley character is also good. I don't know if I'd call him hamming it or not, but he looks like he's having fun in the role, and he's perfect with it. And I love the fact he turns out just to be like sludge. I love what Robert Holmes is saying there. I absolutely love it. It's just a fun story. And that bit, what is that line about? Oh, is taxes like death or whatever? Well, yes, but taxes are more painful. The older I get, the more I can identify with some of the dialogue in this story. I like the Sunmakers. It's just, it's one of those I like to go back to just to watch. It's a fun one. I need to do that soon. I haven't watched it in a while. Plus, I read the Target novel of it. I actually read the Target novel of it before I saw it. That's one of the reasons I bought the DVD. I recognized, when I saw the cover, I recognized the Weasley guy on the cover and was like, I've read that book! So I bought it and I ended up watching it and then I liked it. So. Number 23, The Armageddon Factor, the underrated finale for the Key to Time season. I like it. I think it fills out its 6 parts pretty well. The makeup for the guy who's playing the Shadow is really well done, even if the actor playing the Shadow is hamming it up a bit. The bit about reprogramming K9 is a little unnecessary and weird, although I love the fact the Doctor figures it out quick because K9 calls him Doctor. And he's like, Doctor? I do like that. Drax wouldn't bother me so much if he just didn't have that thick British. Whatever that British accent he's doing is, wow. Wouldn't bother me so much. Lalla Ward is great as the Princess Astra. The actor who's playing the kind of older leader of the soldiers, the one that's got the thing on his neck, he's doing a good job. His second in command is all right, but he does this weird thing anytime he fires a gun where he's like, I don't know, like somebody just shoved a pool cue up his butt or something. He's just, that looks really weird. Really, really weird. Other than that, he's fine. I like some of the stuff story-wise. Like, I like when the guy tries to put the control thing on the Doctor. He just takes it off like, that's hilarious to me. He just, I like the fact the key turning out to be Astra is a pretty neat twist that I didn't see coming the first time until right there toward the end of the story. The idea of it's not an inanimate object, but it's an actual person the key's disguised as. That's pretty neat. It's interesting watching Mary Tam and Lala Ward have a scene together, have moments where they're together on screen, because of course Lala Ward would come back and play Romana the next season. So it's interesting seeing them acting together on the show. And then the bit with the time loop I really like, when they've got the time loop going and you can see it stretching. I think that's really neat as a script idea, and I think it's executed really well on screen, and also one of the things I like about the story. And I love the ending. I actually really enjoy the ending with the Black Guardian, how the White Guardian, it's the Black Guardian disguised as the White Guardian. I think I like Valentine. I like him. He has this cool voice. He's one of my favorite parts of the slip back audio. He just has this cool voice. So I like him in that. I love the way Tom Baker plays that part. I know the director didn't, and I know the novelization of the story has that written darker, like what if the Doctor actually is tempted to become evil, a very kind of Time Lord Victorious Waters of Mars moment for him. But I agree with Tom Baker's choice here. I feel like he played that better. One, everyone knows Tom Baker was very fond of the children watching the show. That's a big thing to him. He very much knew that a lot of his fan base was children. And I think he didn't want to do a scary fourth Doctor because that would frighten the children. I think he did it the way he did partially because, the Doctor's the hero. He wouldn't even entertain the idea of turning evil. And two, it just fits better. It fits the fourth Doctor better. Like I can see the 10th Doctor having that evil moment. I could see the 12th Doctor having that evil moment. But for 4, it seems far more accurate the way the 4th Doctor wrote it. And to me, there's no one on the planet who understands the 4th Doctor better than Tom Baker, since Tom Baker is basically the 4th Doctor. Not just playing him, but he basically is the 4th Doctor. And so I've always said I love the way Tom Baker plays that, where he's just kind of messing with Romana for a minute when he snaps down, and then he just, oh yes. To me, that's perfect. And I really applaud how he plays that. And at number 22 on the list, let's see, what do we have? We have Meglos. Now, I like Meglos, and I know Meglos probably isn't this high on most people's list, but I've talked on the channel before about how I think Meglos is underrated. I think it's a great story. I mean, we have twice the Tom Baker. Who can argue with twice the Tom Baker? And then we also have Jacqueline Hill coming back. And as I've watched more of the first Doctor the past couple years, a lot of that thanks to you guys who have sent a lot of first Doctor DVDs. Thank you very much for that. That's come to make me appreciate Jacqueline Hill even more. So it's great to see her back in Doctor Who playing a different character in this story, and she's fantastic in it. Watching Tom play 2 roles is great. I like how he portrays Meglos. I'm surprised he didn't have an issue wearing the cactus makeup, but he seems to be enjoying himself. Lala Ward is good as Romana in it. I like a lot of the set design here. I like the story. For my biggest complaint about Meglos is I wish it was longer. It's probably the only Tom Baker story where after it's over, I'm always like, I need another episode of this. It's too short. It's my biggest complaint, is I feel like Meglos wraps up a little too quickly. Not necessarily Deus Machina. It just kind of ends, even though it kind of is, it just ends quickly. I'm always like, that's it? When the Doctor runs into Meglos at the end, he's like, haven't I seen you somewhere before? The fact that he kind of switches back to his cactus mode, runs back to the thing, and that's kind of the end. I'm always like, that's it? I always feel like Meglos needed one more episode at least, or it would have made a good 6-parter even. I really like it. It's fun. It's engaging. It's just, I don't know. I always enjoy a rewatch of that story, and I always wish it was longer because it just wraps up too suddenly. And the first time I watched it, I remember being taken by surprise, like, that's it? Is there another disc? I like Meglos. It's I guess a guilty pleasure. I feel like it doesn't get the love it deserves, and I think Tom Baker is great in dual roles. And it's the only story where having the actor who plays the Doctor also playing another character makes sense to the main plot of the story. instead of it just being kind of a coincidence. Because, of course, Meglos is purposely looking like the Doctor so he can pretend to be the Doctor to get access to what he's trying to get access to. And that's the reason why I like Meglos probably better than I would like the Massacre. I've never seen it or heard it. And I definitely like it better than Enemy of the World, is because I never liked and better than Black Orchid, because I never liked when, oh, this Doctor and companion has someone who looks just like them. We just coincidentally ran into them. That always kind of hurts me. Whereas in Meglos, it is a huge part of the plot to have the actor also playing someone else, and I like that. It gets points for that. At number 21 on the list is the legendary Terror of the Zygons. I like Terror of the Zygons again in season 13. Such a good season. The Zygons are an interesting concept. I love their creature design, that kind of, it was definitely an organic look. It's really hard to describe it, but it looks really good. Their shapeshift ability, the effect of them shapeshifting is very good for Classic Who. I think the Loch Ness Monster is pulled off pretty well. It looks pretty good. I like the fact it can even blink and stuff and do stuff with the hands. I was really impressed with how good it looked in my last watch through. I like the story. I like Ian Marter getting not only to play, a human, but he kind of gets to be a little evil when he gets to play a Zygon looking like Harry. Some of the sinister looks on his face combined with the camera work. Some really good shots. I enjoy the location work there. I like the Doctor's kind of Scottish outfit he wears at the beginning. I kind of wish he wore it more in the story, and no, I do not want that to be on the season 13 box set cover, because he doesn't wear it much in the story. It's a cool outfit, but he doesn't wear it a lot in the story. That's more suited for the Terror of the Zygon season 13 disc art, not the front art. I want Pyramids of Mars outfit for that. But yeah, it's just a good story. I like Pyramids. I find it a little overrated. I don't know if I quite call it a masterpiece, but it is good, and it's great having the Brigadier back, and Benton's in that one, isn't he? Yeah, I think Benton's in that one. Benton's back. But it's really good to see the Brigadier, because that is the last time we see the Brigadier, I think, for a good long, was it all the way up until Modern Undead? Is that right? So the last kind of regular appearance of the Brigadier for a while. Good story. Great location work. And here we are at the top 20. And we're going to start with The Brain of Morbius. I like this story a lot. I think the set design is really good. The guy playing Solomon, he's always good when he's in Doctor Who, be it the Cushing films or the show. He's always good. I like him as Dr. Solomon because he does have this kind of fervent worship in his eyes for Morbius while still trying to be a practical, intelligent scientist. It's the way he threads that needle is really well done. Nice to be introduced to the Sisterhood of Karn. It's been really nice to see them come back in the modern series. The actors playing, the ones that talk of them do a really good job. Tom Baker's doing really good here. Watching him kind of figure out what's going on is fun. Elizabeth Sladen is fine in this one, especially the scenes when she has to be blind for a little bit, watching her figure things out. The actor playing the character with the hook hand does a fine job. A very tragic character, a very Hunchback of Notre Dame kind of character, or more accurate would be kind of, Igor, maybe combined with that. Maybe those two put together. And the actor doing that does it pretty well. The Morbius design is decent. I think for Classic Who, it looks pretty good. I do like the claw hand. The little plastic head thing's a little hard to get past. I think they could have done a better job with that. And I don't like the left human arm because it more points to the fact it's just a guy in a suit. I think I would have rather had another fake alien arm there. I would have bought it a little more. But it's fine. It definitely has Frankenstein vibes going to it. I like a lot of the dialogue here, like when they're taunting, Morbius. There's very little of Morbius left. Yeah, Chop Suey. Chop Suey, the Galactic Emperor. I love a lot of that. I love the mind-bending competition between the Doctor And Morbius in the dialogue there, I am with this of the fifth. Oh, I don't think you're at the fifth anymore. Ha, I could beat you like I doubt it, Morbius. You know, I've talked before, I love when Tom Baker does that thing with his voice, when he gets that kind of with his voice. I love when he does that. Serious Tom Baker is scary. Like, serious Fourth Doctor can be scary. So when he does that, I doubt it, Morbius, I love that. Love it. And then the whole mind-bending bit, the way the effects, keeping in mind we're talking about classic Who technology, when it's showing the previous Doctors and the previous faces, whether you believe those to be Doctors or previous Morbius incarnations, however you want to go on that, I think that effect is pulled off really, really well. And I love the fact that in some ways, Philip Hinchcliffe is canon as some kind of character in Doctor Who, be it the Doctor or Morbius, Robert Holmes, Christopher Barry. I love that. I don't know why, but I love that. It's just a good story. I love the darkness to it. You know, there's not a lot of light in this. You know, it's dark outside, it's dark in the caves, it's dark in the house. It's dark a lot, and that fits the tone of the story really, really well. I like the Reign of Morbius. Number 19, we have Warrior's Gate. I do like Warrior's Gate. Warrior's Gate is an interesting story because how it is executed on screen is going to very much depend on the decade it's made in. Like Warrior's Gate, if it was made in the 60s, would have looked one way. If it was made in the 70s, would have looked one way. Made in the 80s, which it is, it's going to look one way. In the 90s, 2000s, 2010, you know, it's going to look drastically different, I think, just depending on the decade it's made in. And the execution of it for, 1980, is really impressive. I love the use of effects here. When they're in kind of this, it's this very kind of surreal story because they are in this kind of other place outside of time. I like the idea of that shrinking. The story to Warrior's Gate is phenomenal. I love the story. And how they're shrinking. I love the kind of surreal quality when everything's in kind of black and white. I love the Doctor and K9 and people walking into the mirror. That effect of them walking into the mirror is a really cool effect. I like, you know, the Doctor stumbling in on this area that's all cobwebs and him seeing like flashbacks of the past of that and how, you know, how the dinner got attacked and then switching back to cobwebs. All of that is fascinating. I think the creatures, the kind of, you know, half human, half dog, whatever they look like creatures, I think their design is done really well. I think that looks better than the design of that one character from Flux, to be honest. It's done pretty well. And finding out how in the present time they're basically slaves, but in the past they were the rulers, they were the leaders, they were the hunters. And that what happened to them is, you know, a bit of an irony, honestly. That's pretty interesting. Now, the human characters on the ship are very two-dimensional. They are. They're not really fleshed out. They're very 2D characters. I do like the kind of two engineers that are kind of the comic relief of the story. Kind of sad they died. I like them. The guy playing the captain, the actor is doing fine with what he has. Again, very two-dimensional. But for what he's doing, he's fine. He doesn't have a lot to work with there. To me, that's the weakest part of the story, is the fact that the human characters really do feel like two-dimensional kind of caricatures, archetypes, whatever. They don't feel like real people. But other than that, it's a lot of fun. It's a nice little fantasy adventure. It's a good send-off to Romana, and it's a good send-off to K9 as well. Yes, number 18, the one that's higher than it deserves to be, the Horns of Naimon. Now, the Horns of Naimon has no objective right to be this high on the list. It is objectively very bad. It's poorly made. There's no budget. It's campy. It's silly. And the guy playing Saldid is hamming it up all over the place. But that's one of the charm of it. Horns of Naimon is one of those stories that once you realize what it is, you can have fun with it. See, the first time I watched Horns of Naimon, I hated it. Like Power of Kroll levels, hated it. Or maybe even worse. To give you an idea, I hated it. I didn't think I'd ever watch it again. I'm kind of surprised I did watch it again. I was probably just bored and didn't have a lot of DVDs at the time. It's one of those that each rewatch of it, I tend to like it more simply because I understand it. If you go into it expecting Genesis or expecting Caves or Carnival of Monsters or City of Death, you're not going to get that. You're going to be disappointed. But if you accept Horns of Nimon for what it is, for the season 17 goodness that it is, you can really have fun with that. Yes, it's silly. Yes, it's campy. Yes, the story's not the best in the world. Yes, the Nimon outfit designs are awful. And yes, the guy playing Soul Deed looks like he's just having a ball with the role. But it makes it so much fun to watch. Think how many memes have come out of this story. How many Nimon have you seen today? 3. I have seen 3. You're all doomed, you hear? Doomed. How can you not have fun with that? How can you not? My dreams of conquest. How can you not love that? Now, they actually has one really sinister moment in it too, when he's interrogating the one engineer who's lying and trying to take credit, or the co-pilot or whatever it is, when he's trying to take credit for getting the ship home, and Soul Deed knows he's lying. The way he does that scene is actually pretty serious for the most part. There's still a little Soul Deed in it for sure. But he actually looks sinister and threatening, and I would be, if I was that co-pilot, I'd be a little spooked too. And that bit when he's like, you wouldn't know how to fix those if your life depended on it. You altered your course, didn't you? You altered your course, didn't you? Didn't you? The way he does that is chilling. I have to give that. That is that one moment in it where Soul Deed's actually genuinely scary. And you feel bad for the guard, almost. The Nimon outfits are terrible. They're so terrible. And then the co-pilot's pants. I know when he gets killed, the pants rip. It's terrible. It's so terrible. The doctor putting little stars to mark his way. But I love it. It's just silly fun. Like, it's one of those stories, if you can accept it for what it is, turn your brain off, just go in. It's silly fun, and you can enjoy it. It's the Doctor Who story I go to when I just want silly fun. You know, it's kind of that classic Doctor Who story that people who don't watch classic Who, when they think of Doctor Who, that's what they think of. You know, they think it's that. They think all of classic Who is Horns of Nimon, and it isn't. But Horns of Nimon, for what it is just a lot of fun. You can tell I'm having a ball just talking about it. And that is why it's this high on this list, is because it's fun. And I like Doctor Who that's fun. Number 17, and for the same reason, is Destiny of the Daleks. Again, it objectively doesn't deserve to be this high on the list, but it's fun. I enjoy it. I actually watch Destiny more often than I watch Genesis. Because Genesis is kind of that fine wine you only take off the shelf every now and then. Destiny is fun, though. Again, Tom Baker looks like he's having a ball with this story. I mean, part of that is he's probably happy him and Lala get on so well together at this stage of their lives. Lala's good at this. It's interesting seeing her meet the Daleks for the first time. The Movellan design doesn't overly impress me much. It does look a little silly. Although the actual outfits and stuff doesn't bother me as much. The fact that that little control unit to them can be sabotaged so easy. The fact it's easy to defeat a Movellan, you just grab the little thing off their waist, is silly and kind of dumb, to be honest. The fact they disarm them all just by whoop, whoop. That's the biggest problem with the story right there to me. Yes, the Khaled City set looks terrible. Terrible. I think the Movellan ship looks fine. I do like the Movellan ship interior. I think when they're running around on Skaro in the quarry, that's fine. It's really just the Dalek City that looks bad. Davros is fine. I mean, obviously the mask doesn't fit properly. It really helps watching the season 17 box set edition. I do like the updated effects from the DVD. Plus, with the new sound, it does add the modulation back to his voice, so he sounds more like Davros. So if you're watching it with the updated effects and the voice modulation done right, it does kind of improve the quality of the story, which I like. It's nice seeing the Movellan weapons actually fire now. Again, I enjoy some of the dialogue. Oh, look, rocks. That to me, that's funny. Oh, look, another quarry. Doctor Who poking fun at itself. I like the paper, rock, scissor bit there. That's pretty cool. I enjoy that. I don't like the fact it treats the Daleks like they're robots, and they're not robots. Now, if it's trying to say they're extremely logic-minded, that's fine, because they are extremely logic-minded, which is kind of the crux of the story. The fact the Daleks need Davros because they're so logic-minded, basically, even though they don't realize it. Davros being brought back is never something I thought it needed. I rather like the way Genesis ends with him kind of going out, being destroyed by his own creation. And I kind of would have been fine with Davros ending there. But it's, Destiny's fun. Much like Horns of Nimon, I find Destiny always a fun rewatch, even if it doesn't objectively deserve to be this high on the list. Number 16 is The Keeper of Traken. I like this one. I think this is the final really good Tom story. It's a lot of fun. I think Sarah Sutton is really good in this. It's easily my favorite Anthony Ainley performance. I love him as Treemass. He does such a good job of playing Treemass as just this good, noble person that it makes it all the more tragic when he's basically killed by the Master when the Master takes over his body, which is also a really good ending for the story. That's a really good, neat, the way that happens, the way one fades into the other. That's a cool ending for the story. The guy playing the Keeper, who I'm always frustrated he's not offering me tea. The Keeper should be offering me some tea, because I know he's also Professor Chronosis from Shada. He's fine. I like it. The actress playing Nissa's stepmom, she does a good job. I think that her part could have been written a little better to make it... I feel like she turns a little too easy. It's very much an Anakin thing where I feel like she turns a little too easy. But the actress playing her does a good job. I don't really like the scenes when she's killing people and the eyebrows are painted on like I talked about earlier. But other than that, I think it's a good story. It's nice to see the Master back. I think Jeffrey does a good job playing that Master right there. Kind of wish they went with the mask instead of just the makeup like they did with Deadly Assassin. But it's fine. It's nice to see the Master basically coming back into prominence in Doctor Who since we didn't see him for a long while. And it's nice to see the Master interact with the Fourth Doctor a little more. It's a really fun story. I don't have a lot to say about it, but I do really like Keeper of Traken a lot. Moving into the top 15, we have Planet of Evil. I like Planet of Evil. I think if there's an underrated story in season 13, it is Planet of Evil. First off, the jungle set. Let's talk about the jungle set. Let's all agree that jungle set is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I can see why pictures of it were taken to show in like classrooms for people learning set design and stuff, because that just looks phenomenal. The story is always going to deserve points just on that jungle set alone. I like that Sarah, it shows a little bit of Sarah. I've always figured Sarah has kind of a high ESP rating. You kind of see that here, the fact she can kind of sense when the invisible creatures are near. I like that kind of comes into play a couple times in the story. I like that. I love Tom Baker, and it's almost always a given. Tom Baker is great. But I love how he does a couple of those things where when he's thinking, he's kind of staring far away, like they're talking to him, and he kind of has that far away look. Like you think he's not paying attention, but in reality, he hears everything that's going around him. He's just in deep thought, and you can see the gears turning. I really like that. I like the set design also for the ship. I like the multiple layers, especially on like the bridge area and other areas. I tend to like when they do that, when there's multiple levels. I enjoy that. I think that's done really well. I like the special effects, like the realization of the creature that's just basically the red outline, very forbidden planet. I like that. I think that looks good. The actor playing the professor that's infected, I know who's the same actor who also played the guy who invents K9 in The Invisible Enemy. He does a really good job. I really like him watching kind of the deranged professor who's obsessed with his work. And then, of course, you see him going all Jekyll and Hyde, turning into the creature and trying to fight it. That's really well done and a lot of fun to watch. I do like the fact the Doctor's able to save him at the end. That's pretty cool. And I like the fact that the planet can keep the ship from escaping just by having a little bit of the stuff on it. I really do love the scene though when the professor tries to kill himself, like he knows he's about to change again. He does try to do the right thing by laying in the pod and trying to send himself out. But of course he changes before he can do it and stop. But the fact that he's noble enough to at least try, I think that's a really cool scene when you see him fighting so hard too, because he's being very unselfish there. He's trying to save everyone, but then the thing takes over and stops it. I think that's done really well. I like that. Just the shot of the hand changing, I really like that. Now the guy playing the captain, I don't really care for. He's a very two-dimensional character. I'm in charge, I'm in command. You'll hear him say that once, twice, or 1,000 times. Also, he has that weird haircut that I can't take seriously. I just can't, I'm sorry. Feels like a very two-dimensional character and is easily the weakest part of the story for me. Now, his second in command, the older guy, I like him. They need to listen to him. They need to just promote him up to captain. He needed to take command a lot sooner. The actor playing him does a really good job. But I like Planet of Evil. It's another one of those that I like to go back and rewatch, and very deserving in its place as part of the legendary season 13. And at number 14, we have Revenge of the Cybermen. Now, most people who watch my channel know I'm very fond of this one. I think it's possibly the most underrated story in all of Doctor Who. I love Revenge of the Cybermen. Definitely got most of the modern Who Cybermen stories beat. I think most would agree. I love the fact Tom Baker doesn't take crap from the Cybermen. He is constantly verbally shooting off his mouth to them or going against their wishes. You're kind of surprised they don't just kill him. But they need him, of course, to take the bombs into the thing. But still, I just love that Tom Baker, the Fourth Doctor, is not having any crap from them. I love that. Sarah Jane is great in this. I like that Harry gets some stuff to do. I do love that line. Harry Sullivan is an imbecile! Which is a slightly different line in the book. I have read the Target novelization of this, which is also really good. The guy playing the double agent that's also kind of a triple agent, he's really good. I know he's in other Doctor Who stories. I really like the B plot going on with the Vogons, or the Vogons, however you pronounce it, down on the planet, the little political struggle going on there with the one guy trying to grab power. It's a nice little B plot that I enjoy. The makeup for them, I think, is done really well. The fact they can still emote a bit is really nice. I love the location work in the caves. I mean, imagine if Underworld would have had that luxury and that budget to do that. It would be so much better. So I love the fact that they don't have to CSO the caves in this story. They're actually there on location. Luckily, Elizabeth survived. I know she almost got killed doing that one scene in the boat. Luckily, she was all right. But the actual location work looks really, really good in the caves. I think it's a clever reuse of Nerva Beacon, using it for Ark in Space and Revenge of the Cybermen, which I believe Revenge of the Cybermen, time-wise, happens first, actually. I think they get sent further back in the past for it. The Cybermen in it are a little more emotional than they need to be, much more like 80s Cybermen would be later. But it's fine. I don't mind that. I love their outfit. The Invasion and Revenge of the Cybermen kind of cyber design is my favorite Cyberman design, even if it does kind of look like a scuba diving suit. Especially their helmets. I love their helmets. Their helmets just look phenomenal. So I enjoyed them in that. A lot of great dialogue. It's a good story. I mean, it's a lot like Earthshock without being quite on the epic scale Earthshock is. Earthshock is a more epic version of this, just with a lesser Doctor, lesser companions, and a lesser B plot. Again, I like the political struggle going on down on the planet. Although I will admit the idea of the Cybermen being weak to gold is kind of silly. I will admit that. But yeah, I like Revenge of the Cybermen. The only time the Fourth Doctor fought the Cybermen in the shows, and the only Cybermen story of the 70s, the greatest decade of the show. I think it holds its own pretty well. Number 13, Shada, the missing episode, or I should say famously incomplete episode that we now have complete with animation. I like Shada. I tend to like Douglas Adams. I like Douglas Adams' style of humor. I like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy novels, or at least the first four. The Mostly Harmless isn't that great, to be honest, but the first four are gems. I love them. I love his style of humor, and he really gets the Fourth Doctor. The only person who gets the Fourth Doctor better than Douglas Adams is Tom Baker, and you put Tom Baker and Douglas Adams together, and oh my goodness, you get magic. I tend to love season 17 a lot. We haven't even reached it, I know, on my ranking list yet at the time I'm recording this, and I believe we haven't reached it yet by the time it goes out either. Because I am fond of season 17. I really enjoy Shada. I think the animation is done really well. I think it blends in with the live action shots really well. That very first transition with it going to the sky works perfectly. It never feels awkward bouncing back and forth between the two. Like it can sometimes, like say if you're watching missing stories from the 60s that are partly animated and partly live action, sometimes it can be jarring going back and forth between them. It never feels that way in Shada, whether you're watching it the movie-length version or the episodic version. It feels really natural. The location work looks gorgeous, being filmed at Cambridge. Them still having the film for it looks really good. Again, I love the humor and the dialogue. Tom Baker is just firing on all thrusters here. You can tell he seems to be enjoying the script. I know him and Lala are doing fantastic by this point. It's nice to see K9 in it. Some of the effects done in it are really well, like when they're walking into the invisible ship. I love the idea of an invisible ship just to save money on the ship. That's clever. There's so much good stuff going on in Shada. I think it would have been a phenomenal season finale if it had been completed originally, and I consider it the season finale now. And I also adore that ending scene with Romana talking to the Fourth Doctor, because that's kind of how the season started, I think, at the beginning of Destiny of the Dalek. The Doctor working and Romana talking to him from another room. So I think it's a nice little full circle that it ends on that. Plus, that last shot of Tom laughing at the camera, I think, it makes all of the Williams season end with the Doctor kind of smiling, laughing at the camera. I like that. It works. There's just so much stuff in here. That's incredible. Yes, incredibly so. I love that line when Adam, or whatever his name is, learns that the ship can travel that fast. That's incredible. And Tom doesn't miss a beat. Yes, incredibly slow. I love that part. And then the guy playing the villain is just so good. I know him from other stuff, but he's so good. Like, it's not quite camp. It's a little over the top, but not quite into camp category, while still being sinister. He like strikes that balance perfectly. He threads that needle exactly the way he needs to, and I really like Shada. A lot of fun. Glad we have it now completed. Number 12, The Face of Evil. Another one of the underrated stories from season 14. And Leela's first story. Chris did a good job with this one. I really like Leela. She's written well, especially here, and Louise Jameson just does a really good job performing her. I really like Tom in this one. Tom is really good at balancing serious Doctor with comedic Doctor. And he does a lot of that here. That was either a really good shot or a really bad. Now, take me to, or what he says, now, do as I say or I'll kill him with this deadly jelly, baby. I love that. I absolutely love that. The evil one, well, I do think that's a bit much. I don't know, I just enjoy everything going on here. I like the set design, especially for the kind of jungle area. The set design on the ship is a little basic, but it's fine. I don't like the outfit designs for the people who live in the ship, the kind of brainy people. Their makeup and design doesn't look very good. The Savages design, the Severtine or whatever, their design is good, and I like them. I like that Leela's more deadly, the Janus Thorns and all that she'll kill somebody just because that's how she was raised to do. I enjoyed that. Has some good cliffhangers in this one. The actual face of the Face of Evil is not overly imposing, but it's fine. It's classic Who. And I like the fact that this is one of those situations where the problem's kind of the Doctor's fault, even though he did it on accident, It was him trying to help them way in the past that kind of caused the problems we have now with the computer being basically schizophrenic. I like that. I love when the Doctor accidentally causes problems when he doesn't mean to, like, you know, the events of Long Game leading into Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways, that kind of thing. And we kind of see that here, even though we don't see the first half of that, we see the consequences of that. And I like that. I enjoy that. I thought I was helping them. And plus, I think a lot of the special effects in this story are really good. I like Face of Evil and find it very underrated. Number 11, just missing out on the top 10, and I'm kind of surprised actually, is The Ark in Space. I love The Ark in Space. This is a classic for me, a masterpiece for me. And one of the 2 Doctor Who stories I have earliest memories of seeing. This is one of these stories that got me into Doctor Who, that got me into Tom Baker. And it holds up well as an adult. I think the TARDIS team are all doing really well in here. I think the guest cast are really good. There's not a lot of the guest cast, but the guy playing Noah does an excellent job. I mean, playing Noah when he's just Noah and playing Noah when he's slowly being taken over by the Wirren, he just does a great performance. And then the main female, Valerie or Vastra or whatever her name is, I forget, she does a really good job as well. I like her in this. I love the scene when Sarah's trying to go through the duct and the TARDIS, the Doctor's just like, I knew we shouldn't have counted on you. And she gets, of course, he's, motivating her to get through, and she's, don't touch me, I can do it. I like that. That's funny to me. And I love the conversation with her. You're improving, Harry. Entirely due to my influence, of course. You mustn't take any credit. I love that. I love that. And of course, he does his, wonderful speech about human beings in this one. Indomitable. It's a fantastic speech from the Doctor. We didn't get a lot of speeches in the Fourth Doctor era, but that's a really great speech. I think the set design for Nerva Beacon's good. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but I do think it's good. I think it's clever. Again, I like how they reused it in Revenge later. It is a nice little one. The updated effects are all right. I mean, they're really dated, and there's not many of them, just a few of the space, the outer space station rocket stuff. And they're okay. They're a bit limited, but they're fine. I tend to watch it with them on. I like the Wirren design in all their different forms. The grubs especially, the little baby ones, are done really well. I mean, bubble wrap and green paint, but it works. It's very effective. They're very creepy. The idea of them is very creepy. And the fact they can basically turn you into one of them, not just physically, but mentally, is really neat. The adult form is fine. It's a little classic Who design, of course, but it's fine, and I like it. I love watching the transformation of Noah, because seeing it affect him, not just physically as it's slowly growing over him, but mentally watching how it affects him. It reminds me a lot of The Fly, Jeff Goldblum, The Fly, the 1986 version, how his transformation wasn't just taking place physically, but mentally how it was affecting him as well in that. One of the reasons I love The Fly, and I love the 1986 version of The Fly, it's such a good movie. And watching that. And then I do like at the end that Noah is able to retain his humanity and destroy the Wirren and save everything. I like that. It's just a classic horror story. It's Alien before Alien. Like, I always wonder if there's some influence of this story on Alien. Like Ridley Scott was like, Because it definitely feels like it has similarities to Alien, but it was made 4 or 5 years before Alien. That's always impressed me. And it's still a good story. It still holds up well. And it's still one of the reasons I'm a Doctor Who fan. Number 10 on the list is the Ribos operation, or Rebus operation, or Roba. I'm never going to get that right on pronouncing that. I don't know why. I love the story, though. It is one of my favorites. The reason it's this high over even, say, The Ark in Space is the rewatchability of that. Rewatchability means a lot to me, usually anyway. And I love rewatching this story. I really do. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy the scene at the beginning with the White Guardian. Well, what happens if I don't want to do it? Nothing. Nothing? Yes, nothing. Ever. Oh, I see what you mean. I love his first conversation with Romana in the TARDIS, his first conversation with Romana when they leave the TARDIS. Well, your name, it's too long. By the time I yell that out, we'll be dead. How about I'll call you Romana? I don't like Romana. It's either Romana or Fred. Well, I think I'd rather just be called Fred. Right. Come on, Romana. I love that. It's so Fourth Doctor, and one of the reasons why I love the Fourth Doctor. I love that. And I really like Mary Tam in the role. Mary Tam is my favorite Romana between the two. I do prefer her. She has this kind of high class carry to her that I like. I don't know, it's just something about her Romana. She just seems like a princess, and I absolutely love it. She's dressed well. She holds herself well. She's very book smart without having the experience of someone who's traveled around like the Doctor has. I think of that. She has the book smarts. He has the world experience. And I tend to like a lot of the guest cast. The guy who plays the Graf Vindicay is so good in that role. He's one of the reasons I love the story. He is so good in that role. And then the older guy who plays his right-hand man plays that part so well. And you kind of get that he's either, maybe he served the Graf's father and he sticks with the Graf even though he knows he's not the best human out of loyalty to the family. Or maybe he's been kind of the bodyguard to the Graf since he was a kid. You just get there's a strong connection there, almost like family. If there's anyone that the Graf has a connection to on a personal level, it is kind of his second in command. And I like that. I like Benro. The guy playing Benro does a good job. The two thieves, they're all right. The kind of head thief, the kind of bigger guy, I like him. He is great. The actor playing him is on top of it. I love his salesman voice. I like that. You sell cities? Oh, no, I sell planets. He takes pride when he's having that conversation with the Doctor. I love that. Now, the guy who plays his partner, I'm not as into, especially when he's doing that Scrinstone map part. He's okay. He's not great, but he's okay. Other than that, I like the story. The set design is good. I really like that a lot. Even the smaller characters seem fine in it. It's just a fun one to go back and watch. I really enjoy rewatching that one a lot, and that's why it's this high on the list. Number 9 is The Pirate Planet, and pretty much for the same reason. I love rewatching The Pirate Planet. My favorite of season 16. Again, Douglas Adams. I love Douglas Adams' humor. I enjoy the story. It really is a serious story. You really could have done this in the Hinchcliffe era and had it darker. The idea of a vampire planet that just destroys other planets and steals their energy and resources. That's actually a pretty dark idea. But it is done more in that Williams era humor. And the guy playing the captain's great. I like Bruce. Bruce is just on top of it playing the captain. Because, of course he does it in this kind of humorous thing, because that's what they were told to do, to punch up the humor in it during the Williams era. Mr. Fibuli! I love that voice. I just can't get over how good that voice is. Moons of madness! But the captain as a character is quite fascinating. I've actually read the novel that fills a lot of the original script back in, which does change some stuff and add some stuff. The captain is actually a really fascinating character, though, because he's actually really intelligent. He's a really smart person. You get that when you see the thing he built with all the remains of the planet in it. And even the Doctor is impressed. I mean, he thinks it's an atrocity, of course. But he's impressed that the captain was able to make it work. There is still that little bit of him that's like, wow, I can't believe you did this. The captain's intelligent, but he's also, he's like a pirate. He wants to go out. He wants to travel the universe and see it and enjoy it and do conquest and be a pirate. He wants to do all those things. Doing what he's doing now, being stuck on this planet, he hates it. He wants to be back on his great majestic ship, the one that crashed into the planet, and be out exploring again. I find the captain a fascinating character. And I love that he's going through all of this to try to get himself free, that he's laying a trap for the Queen. He's such a fascinating and intelligent character. And it's actually really fleshed out if you think about it. But that kind of gets lost in the way the story is done with the humor it has in it. Where the novel, you catch that a little better. Or if you're just paying attention in the TV episode, you can read that a little better. The guy playing Mr. Fibuli is great. I like him. He's so good in that role. Every little nuance. Tom Baker is on top form. Romana is great. The guest cast are all right. I never really care about the light is dying or whatever it is they say, like in part 1 when they keep saying it, the light dying, energy dying, whatever, life force dying. I hate that. It happens too long. Some of the effects need updating, like the little laser blast, because they don't really shoot. You just see the dots hit people. Really need some updated effects. The force fields from the Mentat people really need to be updated. I wish they called them the Mourners. I think that's what they're called in the book and in the original script, the Mourners. That works better instead of like the Mentiats or whatever. Got some good cliffhangers in it. I don't like the fact that scratch on Tom Baker's lip is just ever noticeable. Like, I can't unsee that. They need to CGI that away. I constantly just see it. But the story is good. It's got a good sense of humor. I love when the doctor walks in. Oh, hey, how you doing? I'm the doctor. It's nice to meet you. Oh, you've met Romana. And then they kind of hold guns at him, and he's like, oh, what hospitality. I'm underwhelmed. When he first just walks into the captain's command room. Tom Baker gets a lot of very humorous Fourth Doctor, Douglas Adams style moments in this story. And I love it. I love it. I love the Pirate Planet. And number 8 on the list, State of Decay, my favorite season 18 story, the masterpiece of the season. It, of course, very much feels like it belongs in another season, belongs in the Hinchcliffe era. It is a holdover from there. But I like that. You know, it kind of mixes up season 18 a little bit. Plus, I tend to like the horror-style stories. I like this one a lot. I've talked about State of Decay a lot on the channel. I love it. It's not full-blown horror like some of them are, but it has those horror elements and the suspense elements. The actors playing the 3 are really good in it. They do a very theatrical performance, but it works. It works for the story. And I like the actual story, too, of, you know, them being, first you think they're descendants of the original crew, but to find out they are the original crew and that it's a ship, you know, like from Earth that got lost in space. The fact that they ran into the last surviving vampire, and the fact that, like, the castle is the ship. I love that. All of that to me is cleverly done. Of mixing, you know, technology with, fantasy and horror. I think that's really cool. I like that their plan to revive the Great Demon is good. Adric is not annoying in this like he is later in later stories. He makes some bad decisions in this, but I don't find him bothersome. The realization of the Vampire King doesn't look good, like when they do the x-ray thing and see him under the ground, that looks bad. And then the hand reaching up and then the hand going back down doesn't look good. And even the rocket going up and down isn't overly impressive. So yeah, there's some effects they could update there at some point. But they're fine. It's classic Who, you know. But I like learning about the Time Lord lore, like, you know, how they fought the vampires, you know, millennia ago, and learning about the bow ships and how that knowledge enables the Doctor to defeat, you know, all of the vampires. That's pretty cool. And the big 3's deaths, the vampires, their death scene is so cool. That's really awesome, especially by classic Who standards. But even compared to some of the stuff in modern Who, that's pretty effective. I like it. I love State of Decay. My favorite of season 18. And at number 7 on the list, Horror of Fang Rock. Another classic horror story from Doctor Who. Definitely a story that feels like it belongs in the Hinchcliffe era, which it almost does. Season 15 really is a mix of Hinchcliffe era horror stuff and new stuff coming in. But I love the Horror of Fang Rock. I know one of my fellow subscribers, David, is also a big fan of it. I've mentioned him on the channel a lot of times. I still call him Ham, his old screen name. He's always going to be Ham to me. But horror does a really good job of being a base under siege story, of having that claustrophobic feel to it with them trapped in the lighthouse, with the creature inside, knowing the creature is inside with them, and that slow build of, okay, what's going on? Okay, something's here. Okay, it's alien. Okay, it's dissecting bodies. Okay, it can shapeshift. Okay, it's in with us. And watching that grow over the course of the story. I love the camera work here. The only real quibble with it is it could use some updated effects. Some of the effects are a little dated looking. It's classic Who, you get over that. But it could use some updated effects. I love the Rutan. I love the fact it's not human. The fact it's not humanoid, that it's something different. It's realized decently, not the best, but decently. And I do like the fact it is something different, something very alien, and it is nice to see the Rutan, the enemy of the Suntarans, in a story and actually getting to see just how different the Suntarans and the Rutans are. How does that war work? And the fact the Rutans can shapeshift, basically. Maybe that's how that war works. I like the fact that it's studying humans to better learn how they work, dissecting them, studying them, and slowly being able to pretend to be them, impersonate them slightly better. The actor who plays the kind of older fisherman does a really good job here. I know he's also an enemy of the world, portraying the older fisherman, and then later the Rutan disguised as the older fisherman. He does a really good job of that. Like when he does that smile a couple times, but it doesn't look right on his face. It just looks odd, like it never touches the eyes. Like that one scene when it's really good acting. It's really good acting. Tom Baker and Louise Jameson again on fine form here. That cliffhanger of, I thought I locked it out, but it turns out I've locked it in with us. That's fantastic. I like that. I like most of the guest cast in this as well. I really liked the first guy that got killed. I hated that he died so soon. I liked him. Of course, the one woman who's there, besides Leela, is very annoying. I was very happy when she got killed. I felt kind of bad for her, but I was happy when she got killed. But that's just the actors playing that part, the way that part should be played. They might not be the most fleshed out guest characters, but they still are done pretty well, and the actors are playing them pretty well. I like the fact that it takes place at night. That really lends itself to the horror factor of the story, much like Image of Findal does. The lighthouse looks good. Again, the fact they're on an island, there's really no way for them to get away. I like that. And the green glow of the creature when it's near, it has this eerie fear to it. There's so much atmosphere in the story. It's just dripping with atmosphere and suspense and tension. And all of these come together in just a perfect storm of a good horror story. I also like the fact that it gives Louise Jameson an excuse not to have to wear those contacts she hated anymore. And the doctor giving her a lesson of, when he gives her that lesson of, you don't have to kill everything. There are other ways to do stuff. I like that. It's such a good story. I really like Horror of Fang Rot, one of Tom Baker's best, which is why it's so high on this list. Number 6 gets a little tricky. Like 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all really close. I had problems ordering 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1 and 2, I knew pretty solidly what they were, but 3, 4, 5, and 6 really flip-flop back and forth. They're really close. But we're going to go with number 6, which is The Seeds of Doom. And again, as you can tell, I like Doctor Who when it does horror. Season 13 is really good to me. I really like it. And Seeds of Doom is a fantastic season finale. Very much has The Thing vibes going on to it, even though it came out before the 82 remake of The Thing. But of course it comes out after the original movie and the original novella or whatever it's based on. Who Goes There, I think it's called. Now there's always that plot hole of why doesn't the Doctor just take the TARDIS there immediately. But overlooking that, it's a really good story. I like the creature horror and the body horror going on. I love the Crinoid outfit, the ones it's basically the Axon outfit repainted, the stage 1 Crinoid or whatever. It looks really, really good. That's really good. It's creepy, terrifying. Those first 2 episodes in the Arctic, isolated, cut off, are just gold there. The Crinoid in its full adult form and its almost adult form don't do much for me. Like the cliffhanger when it rushes up doesn't do as much for me. Something fell. Yeah. But they're all right. But yeah, the fully formed one is not as impressive as the early stages. I like the guy playing Chase. He hams it up a bit, But it's like a fun hamming up with it. You can just tell that this guy really likes his plants. Like, really likes, even before the thing kind of hypnotizes him, really likes his plants. He plays music to his plants. Him and Poison Ivy would have cute babies, wouldn't they? So the actor playing him does a good job of balancing that, of being a little at the top without going fully over the top, and I like that. The guy playing Scorby, I love Scorby. That guy deserves awards. The guy playing Scorby is just gold. I love Scorby. It's like, I love Scorby, but it's because I love to hate Scorby. You just hate Scorby. He's such a, it's not that he's unintelligent. I mean, he's very street smarts, but you can tell that he's out for himself. Even when he's working for the doctor a little bit at one point, or working with the doctor, I should say, you just know that if it comes between him and anybody else, he's going to choose him and dart out of there, which is exactly what happens. And when he does get his kind of comeuppance, you're like, kind of had that coming. Should have stuck with the doctor. The doctor, I love Tom Baker in this. I say that a lot, but this is one of my favorite Tom Baker portrayals. He's just so witty and clever and smart alecky here. All right, doctor, turn around, and he just turns in the complete 360. I love that. Bit about what happened to him. Oh, all right, doctor, talk. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart had perfect pitch. What happened to him? What, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart? Oh, him? Oh, he died. I love those little... Man, there's a lot of that, of him being... You know, he doesn't really like authority figures much. There's a lot of third doctor in him right here where he's not putting up with anything. They're not even authority figures. He just doesn't have any patience with anybody in this one. He is a little callous. Now, when he's callous with the Arctic workers, it's because he's trying to press on them the importance of what's going on. You know, there is no choice. Trying to get it through their head that this thing is not their friend anymore. This thing can kill the entire human race. You know, he's trying to press that in on them. It sounds a little callous, but they don't have the knowledge he does. They don't recognize the danger the way he does. And the crinoid, when it hatches and comes out, is very creepy, very alien-like. And again, in a story that comes out before Alien, it has that very alien feel to it, the way it opens and shoots out and latches on. Is really, really neat. I really do enjoy this one. There's a lot of Tom Baker. I like when he busts through the window to save Sarah Jane and holds him at gunpoint. Kind of undoctory, but he does. Excellent, Doctor. What do you do for an encore? I win. I just love that. Scorby! Scorby! There's so many great Tom Baker moments in this story. Seeds of Doom is definitely one of Tom's best, and one of the Fourth Doctor's best, and one of Doctor Who's best. Number 5 on the list is Robot. Now, Robot objectively does not deserve to be this high on the list, but I love Robot. I have a soft spot for it for a multitude of reasons. I think it's a lot of fun, but 2, I had a girl I dated for over a year. It was a classic Who story we watched together, and she really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun for her. So that's a kind of a memory, you know, of us together during a really happy time, which we had a lot of happy times, to be fair. Played a lot of Mario Kart together. But that's something her and I shared. I remember for the few days afterwards, we were running around like the robot, which was, I don't know, it amused us. So I have that memory, and it is fun. Yes, the robot, the K1 robot is very obviously a guy in a suit. And the tank that comes to attack him is obviously a model. And the ending, when the robot grows to giant size, is kind of silly, and it kind of takes on a King Kong approach there with him carrying Sarah around, which is obviously a doll and shots. Yes, yes, yes. But it's so much fun, and I love it. And Tom Baker just hits the gate running. I mean, he really just is the Doctor in his first story, just right from the go. And it's nice basically having him get to do a Pertwee story, because Robot is basically a Pertwee story just with Tom Baker as the Doctor. And it's nice to see how that's different than a traditional Pertwee story, and how different the Fourth Doctor is from the Third Doctor, and how he interacts with people in the story. I like that. I love his joke about, it's impenetrable. Never like that word. Sounds too much like unsinkable. What? Yeah, said the iceberg to the Titanic. Glug, glug, glug. I like that. I enjoy that. Kettlewell? You let her go with Kettlewell? I love that. The fact he gets to trip somebody with a scarf in his first story. The bit, with him talking to Harry, you may be a doctor, but I'm the doctor. The definite article, you might say. I love that. And how he ends up tying him up. The scene when he's picking out his outfit is just comedy gold. You think I might be noticeable? You might. One moment. And I love that look on Tom Baker's face when he first walks into the room and sees the TARDIS. Just that look of pure joy on his face when he spots the TARDIS. That's Tom Baker. That's the Fourth Doctor. And I love that. And of course, him and Sarah together. I love Sarah. I love the Fourth Doctor. And they're my favorite TARDIS team. So seeing them together, getting to do stuff. I like the really feminist woman. It just shows how irksome that can be. She is really good in a villainous role in this. The actress playing her just has that part down so well. She is great in that. I really like her. She's more terrifying than the robot, really. The actress playing that, props to her. The guy playing Kettlewell. I like him as the scientist. I like when him and the doctor start talking and the doctor has to, Professor, I think you better tell us about that robot. So many wonderful, silly little moments. And we get our first, would you like a jelly baby? And I love him talking to Harry at the end when he, now you know you can't actually go in there. It's not bigger than, we do know that? Yes, we know that, don't we? We can't go doing a scatter, can't we? You wouldn't mind taking a look inside just to prove that it's an illusion. Well, if it make you feel better. Oh, it would make me feel a lot better. That grin on his face, he said that a lot. But I love Robot. Don't you have those Doctor Who stories? Maybe they're not objectively the best, but you just get that pure joy from watching them. No matter how many times you've seen them. God, I've probably seen Robot not a dozen times, but probably 8 times or so, 9 times. I don't know. It's always a fun rewatch. I love Robot. I get so much joy from watching it. And number 4 on the list, The Talons of Wing Chiang. I love this story. It's easily Tom's best season finale and one of the best season finales Doctor Who has ever had. I love the location work at night. It really adds to the story. I love the set designs, be it in the sewers, be it in Lightfoot's house, be it in the theater, which I think they actually shot in a theater. Down at the bottom of the theater, the set design is immaculate. It looks great. I love Tom Baker's Sherlock Holmes outfit. I'm glad they used that on the season 14 box set. It's just a sharp looking outfit. I love the little outfit Leela gets to wear when she's dressed up. It's really nice too. It's got a nice amount of humor in it. Like I love when Lightfoot and Leela are eating, she just kind of starts eating it with her hands, and Lightfoot just watches her, and then he picks it up and starts eating it with her hands. I love that. It's such a good story. You got the giant rat, whether the original version or the CGI version. The CGI update's good for it. I like, Grell, is that his name? Grell. He's a cool villain. The idea, Magnus Grell, he's a cool villain. The fact that he is a scientist without scruples, which we've seen before, and that, he has no scruples, and that catches up with him in the future, so he has to leave to go to the past, but it horribly disfigures him, and that he's doing whatever he can to live because he has no scruples and no morals. I love when he gets his comeuppance, one, by learning that his technology is a cul-de-sac, that it goes nowhere, that it doesn't work, when the doctor tells him, it led, whatever, up a technological cul-de-sac, or whatever he says. I love that line. And then, of course, him getting his comeuppance in the drain machine is fitting, and I love that. I love that character. And the makeup used on him when we do see his briefly warped face is really impressive. That is impressive, because it looks like melted wax. It looks like wax just melted, like he was held too close to a candle. That's really good makeup. I got to give props to that. I think it's well cast. I think the characters are written well. I really like Jago and Lightfoot. The actors playing Jago and Lightfoot are just so well done. The guy playing Grill is over the top in a good way without being so over the top. He comes across like Stephen Thorne can at times. It's that perfect level of megalomania that works. I'm really glad Jago and Lightfoot got more audio adventures together. They're just so well done. I don't have as many issues with the casting choice of Chang as younger people might, because being older, I have a better understanding of things being of their time. Everything is of their time, including that's products and people. Now, I don't judge people for being younger for having that way, because 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds are also products of their time, and they have different beliefs and ideas and opinions on things than people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, etc., who are also products of their time. So I don't think less of them just because their opinion is different than mine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and everybody is entitled to be offended by what they're offended by. I'm not here to tell anybody they're right or wrong. What offends you is what offends you, and what doesn't offend you doesn't offend you. But I think the character is written well and performed well by the actor. Whether you agree with the casting choice or not, or whether you think it's inappropriate or not, I think the actor playing Chang does give a good performance. And I do think the character's written well. He's a very three-dimensional character. I really love something I never noticed until one of my subscribers pointed out to me. How when he's on stage performing, Chang talks in that more broken English, that more Fu Manchu speak. But when he's off stage and actually interacting with people, he talks a more proper English, a more formal English. Like when he's on stage, he's playing to the stereotype, to the crowd. Chang shoot 20 peasants learning this trick. But when he is talking, off stage, he talks more proper. I like that little nuance. I think that's good writing. It's a Bob Holmes story, after all. The best writer Doctor Who's ever had. And I never picked up on it until someone pointed it out. I do love that scene when Chang is doing the card trick and the Doctor does that bit when he's just like daring him to shoot him. I love that. The little I dare you of that. That's really cool. I enjoy that whole scene. It's such a good scene. I just think it's a really good story, a really good mystery, a lot of good set designs, a lot of good characters. I'm not going to penalize it because things were different back then. I don't believe in that. I mean, in a 2009 poll, it came in 4th place in Doctor Who magazine, and I believe in another poll back around 2013, 2014, I'd have to double check. I believe it won as the best Doctor Who story of all time. I need to double check that, but I think that's accurate. But it's routinely, even through the 2010s, placed highly in Doctor Who polls. And that's just based on how good the story is, and because the story is phenomenal. Now, that's just my opinion. If you have issues with that story, and that's just something that you have trouble getting past, that's fine. I'm not here to judge you for that. Just as I hope you don't judge me for the fact I like it because it's written by my favorite Doctor Who writer and it's well acted. I believe my opinion doesn't invalidate your opinion, and your opinion doesn't invalidate my opinion. We're all Doctor Who fans. We're not going to agree on everything. So I just ask that we be respectful of each other's opinions, and the same in the comments, no matter how you feel on that. I love the talents of Wing Chang. It deserves all of the accolades it's gotten, all of the awards and recognition it's gotten over the years. It's just a phenomenal Doctor Who story. And that brings us to the top three Doctor Who stories of all time. Well, not Doctor Who stories, excuse me. The top 3 4th Doctor stories of all time. And that brings me to the top 3 4th Doctor stories, in my opinion. Number 3, The Pyramids of Mars. I love Pyramids of Mars. I got to rewatch it for the first time in a long time recently because one of my subscribers did send it to me. I really, really appreciated that. It was really, really nice to be able to rewatch it again. It was the only season 13 story I didn't own, and I love season 13. So that was a lot of fun. It's such a good story. It has such a good tone and feel to it. It feels dark. I like the fact the Doctor is worried. Now, he's still in control, like the Doctor tends to be. He's still in control. He's not letting his fear control him. But you can tell the Doctor is concerned, worried, and even a little afraid because he knows he is facing a force that is so powerful that it could even wipe out the Time Lords. I like when Sarah's like, even your lot? And he goes, yeah, even my lot. It took the combined might of Osiris and all 72, or Horus, and all 72 of the Osirans combined just to imprison Sutekh. I love that. It does a really good job of getting across how dangerous the threat is in this story. Like when Sarah's like, well, why don't we just leave? We can go back to 1980. And Tom's like, no, we can't do that. And he takes her to the future and shows her and Lawrence what 1980 would look like if Sutekh got free. And it's just that desolate wasteland. That is such a cool scene. Such a good scene. I also love right before that, though, when he's showing Lawrence, Professor Scarman's brother, the TARDIS. And I love the joy Tom Baker the Fourth Doctor takes in watching Lawrence be so excited. Because he's so excited to see, because they're both scientists. And when he sees the TARDIS, he's all excited and looking around, like a kid in a candy store. And I love that smile on Tom Baker's face as he sees Lawrence just kind of touring the TARDIS. You mind if I look around? Oh, be my guest. I absolutely love that. The fact that the Fourth Doctor, just for that moment, does get that little joy of seeing someone take kind of the same joy that he would take in exploring a new mystery like that. Just like the fact that I like that he's impressed that Lawrence created that little machine he created. Oh, you've created, this like 40 years earlier, 60 years earlier. The fact the Doctor's a little impressed by that. And then he uses it, well, what's that you got? Oh, kind of the same thing, just condensed down a little bit. I like that. That's pretty cool. The actor who plays Professor Scarman, the one possessed by Sutekh, he's so good in that. He is so good. The actor playing him is just so good. That look on his face, just evil incarnate. And I love the way they did that scene when he gets shot and you just see the air go back in and him walk to the fact they had to film that backwards is really, really cool. It's a really neat effect. It's like a simple effect, but it's a really neat and effective effect. I really like that. And Gabriel Wolf as Sutekh. I love him. I like the fact that he chooses to do it in that soft whisper instead of, it's like the opposite of Omega and Stephen Thorne's characters in the show. He's a megalomaniac, but he does it quietly in that soft voice, and it's just as deadly, if not more so. Even with that quiet voice, you are able to get just what kind of threat Sutekh is, I am Sutekh the Destroyer. Where I walk, I leave dust and destruction. Or I forget what he says there, but that's such a wonderful line. I love it. And you just know that if he gets free, the galaxy's doomed. The episode communicates that so effectively. I like the location work. I like the set design. The house looks really, really good. It's such a good story. And I love the Fourth Doctor's outfit. I like the outfit he wears in that. I'd love for that to be like the season 13 cover outfit he wears. I really like his outfit in Pyramids of Mars. And I love the fact that I believe it's Pyramids of Mars that has that iconic shot of him at the beginning. When he's wearing the fedora and he does that look up like this and the camera pans out to him and he pulls the hat back and kind of has his hands in his pockets. I've always loved that shot. It's just it's a really dynamic camera shot, especially for classic Doctor Who, and it's one of my favorite shots in all of Tom Baker's run. It's just one of those legendary classic shots you see. You see it used in fan trailers all the time. And then I like the fact that Sarah's a little playful in it. I like the fact she used to shoot the gun. I'm not quite sure why she's such a good shot, but I'm fine with that. And I like when, like, she tosses the doctor the explosive stuff, and he's like, huh? She's like, what? The slightest thing could blow, you know, the slightest sneeze could set this off. I wonder what happened to the person who left it here. And she's just like, maybe he sneezed. And the doctor's like, I love that. There's those little bits of humor in there with them. They're so good together. I like when they both start to walk out and they see the mummy and immediately turn and walk around. They're just, and immediately turn and walk around. I always hear they improv that, and I love that. It's just wonderful. I love them together. Gotta love Pyramids of Mars. Number 2 on the list, the legendary Genesis of the Daleks. Now, if there's one story that I just have to feel obligated to put high, it's Genesis. You have to. I mean, it objectively deserves it. It's phenomenally made, and I do enjoy Genesis a lot, so it would be here anyway. But that's one of those ones you just feel obligated. It is the classic Doctor Who story that fans keep in their back pocket whenever they run into people who just watch the modern show who are like, well, the modern show's better because it has Blink and it has this and World Enough in Time, and they'll start prattling off all these modern Who shows that are amazing. The classic Who fans, Genesis is always the one we have in our back pocket ready to go, boom, Genesis of the Daleks, we win, go home. And while Genesis might not even be the best classic Doctor Who story for a lot of people, it is the most famous one. It is the one you hear about. If you're a modern Who fan, it is the one you've been told, oh, hey, you need to watch Genesis. I really like watching a few of the different reviewers on YouTube, and my favorite one is Jess from Seska Says. I really love her reviews, and she's going through Classic Who. And I remember when she got to Genesis wondering, I wonder if she's heard about Genesis. And it shows the scene of her watching the opening titles, and when it says Genesis of the Daleks, she goes, oh, okay, we're here, we're doing this. I'm sitting there going, yep, she's heard of Genesis. And then even she, at the end of her first video covering parts 1 and 2, goes, okay, for a moment, let's talk about the legacy of Genesis of the Daleks. And she goes to talk about how it is the one she's always heard about. You need to watch it. She's like, from way, way back when I first started doing the modern show, all these years, Genesis. And that's how it is. Genesis is the classic Doctor Who story you hear about. And rightfully so, in the sense that it is a phenomenally well-made story. Some people might argue it drags just a little in the middle. That's fine. There's an omnibus version for that. If there are little parts in there you don't think need to be there, like the big clamshell, which really honestly doesn't need to be there, you can watch the omnibus version of that just fine. I prefer the regular version, but the omnibus version is a nice option if you want to trim the fat just a little bit on it. I think it's an excellent 6-parter. I love it. I love how war-torn this planet is and seeing what centuries of war have driven both sides to. I love the fact that it's not just the Daleks are bad, the Thals are good, or the Khalids are bad and the Thals are good. You know, it's very much a gray area we see back here where even the Thals, there's good ones and bad ones, and the Khalids, there's good ones and bad ones, some of which are going to do whatever it takes on both sides to win, and some of which who just want to stop the fighting and do the right thing. I like that. I really enjoyed that. I like the opening scene when you see the people in the gas mask getting shot at. That's really well done. The location work for this is really good. Set design is really good. The guy who plays Niter, Peter, I believe is his name, is phenomenal. Now, he's in several Doctor Who's. I know he's also in Silurians. He's also in Invasion of the Dinosaurs. He's just really, really good actor, especially at playing those type of characters. He's so good as Niter. If you'd never caught on to the German group that the Daleks are an allegory for, Genesis flat out spells it out practically. Especially with Niter, the way he even clicks his heels when he stands to attention. I mean, you get exactly what the Daleks are supposed to be based on right here with the Khalids. And the guy playing him, Peter, just pulls that off so well. Niter is such a great one-off character. I have to give props. Davros is at his best here. Michael Wisher is still my favorite Davros. I absolutely love the way he plays Davros here. The megalomania comes across really well with him. Anytime him and the Doctor share screen time together is gold. Some of the best moments in all of Doctor Who, classic or modern. listening to the speech when the doctor asked him about the virus, and he could, if he had a virus that would destroy every living thing, would he release it? And Davros says, yes, I would. You really get the megalomania here, the power, the craving for power for all things with him. I absolutely love every exchange they have. Seeing how close the Khalids come to getting victory, only to get cheated out of at the last minute by Davros being so clever and having the Daleks kill them all, or most of them. But it's great. It's great comeuppance to see the Daleks turn on Davros. And if Davros had never come back, if he had been a one-off here, that would have been such a fitting end to the character. To see him live just long enough to realize the horror of what was happening, that his own creations were doing exactly what they were made to do, destroying anything that's not Dalek, not having any emotions. And to see this man who is so smart and so intelligent be not quite smart enough that it gets him killed. To where right when he's trying to press the button, you just hear that scream he does. That would have been a great ending for the character. It's a great ending for the story, but it would have been a great ending for the character. Again, it has little moments of humor, like, well, you can't be alien. Davros has ruled that, other planets don't exist, and what the? And Tom just looks at him and grins. I love that grin. And of course, we get the "Do I Have the Right" speech, one of the best speeches in all of Doctor Who. And it really shows a lot of the Doctor's character, that he's having this dilemma of conscious wrestling with whether he should do that or not. He doesn't actually make a decision because Gorman shows up beforehand. That's why he thanks Gorman. You never know, I'm so grateful for you, Gorman. You'll never know how grateful. The fact he doesn't have to make that decision because it would be so hard on him. Such a great scene. So well done by Tom. I really enjoy that. It's just, Genesis deserves all of the accolades it gets as well. It's one of the best for a reason. It's such a phenomenal story and essential watching for any Doctor Who fan. And of course, number one, the one some of you already knew was going to be number one, City of Death. I love City of Death. It's not one I watch as much as some of the others, but it's one when I'm in the mood to treat myself. A lot like Genesis, actually. I love City of Death. Again, I have to remind myself that it's not written just by Douglas Adams, because it feels like it is. It's very much got his fingerprints all over it, as others have said. Although I have learned reading some of Graham Williams' novels, he actually has a good sense of humor about stuff himself. So I can actually see them working really well together on this story. I love the location work in Paris, which I believe was the first time Doctor Who had filmed outside of the UK, as I recall. The location work is beautiful. And of course, Tom and Lala were at a really good point in their life together. So they're in great spirits. They're having a good time. It's basically a vacation for them. And so they look so joyous running around Paris. You have Julian Glover playing Scaroth, and he is just phenomenal in that role. He's such a good actor. It's so great to have him back in Doctor Who. The actress playing the Countess is phenomenally good playing the Countess. And the guy playing Duggan is just so good as Duggan. This story is so well cast. So well cast. Duggan really is one of those you wish he'd been a companion. I would have liked to have seen him come back. I like them as a trio. The Doctor, Romana, and Duggan. I just love them together. That's one of the reasons why this story is so good. They're so great together. And it has my favorite scene in all of Doctor Who, when the Countess is back at her chateau or whatever it is, interrogating them, Why would he be following me? Well, you're a beautiful woman, probably. That could be the greatest line in all of Doctor Who. Who sent you, Doctor? Who sent me what? I love the humor of that scene. I don't think he's as stupid as he appears. My dear, nobody can be as stupid as he appears. I just love that. Yes, will you escort us to the dungeons, please? Thank you. What a wonderful butler. He's so violent. I love all of that. That's the kind of thing I love from Doctor Who. That's the kind of thing I love from the Doctor. That's my kind of Doctor. I love that. I love how flippant he's being with them in this. I love the little cameo from John Cleese and Eva, is that her name? I remember the actress. She ends up coming back later in one of Colin's stories. What, Resurrection of the Daleks? I think she came back in Resurrection of the Daleks. I enjoy their little cameos there as well. It's just, you know, I like the makeup design for Skyroth, his design with the one eye. I know the monster head's bigger than his human head, but that's still a cool design. Learning that the accident that splintered him, which is a great concept, by the way, him being splintered across time like that. That's such a neat idea. I love that. Is what caused the human race to be formed. That's pretty cool. The model work is really good there. Like the ship, when it's lifting off and landing and imploding, that's some fantastic looking model work. I really like that. I love City of Death. There's so much fun. It doesn't quite all work. The ending is a little Deus Ex Machina, a little too easy, with the Doctor just kind of following back and punching him, and it's a little too easy. And the bit with the clock face, when the guy draws Romana with the clock face, doesn't work for me. I get what they're going for there, but it doesn't quite work. So the story's not perfect, let me be clear. There are a couple things like that, and there's probably a couple more I can't think of at the moment, where it doesn't quite work. And again, it resolves a little too easily, but I love it overall. I do enjoy it. It's so much fun to go back and rewatch. I love City of Death. So I would like to know what you have thought of this list and what you agree with, what you disagree with, and how you would rank them. So comment down below and let me know. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to click that like button and that subscribe button. That helps me out. My goal in 2023, Doctor Who's anniversary year, is to reach 1,000 subscribers. We are well on our way to that. So I certainly appreciate each and every one of you who watches regularly. Many thanks. I also have a Patreon. If you would like to support me that way, there's a link to that down in the description below. That helps me keep the bills paid. I certainly appreciate it. Several different tiers to look at. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons: Stephen Crane, Finn Perkins, Colin Coney, and Unknown289. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. A very big thank you to all of you. I also have a P.O. box. If there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review, that's down there as well, as is a link to my Amazon wish list, which I update regularly. Most importantly, if you've reached this point, I really appreciate you sitting through what I'm very sure is the longest YouTube video I've ever done on either of my channels. So most importantly, thank you for watching.